Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, going to be a pretty entertaining email that was sent from a subscriber. This from a guy, sounds like he's about in his early to mid-50s right now. And he shares his story of events that happened about 18 to 20 years ago when he was in his mid-30s and just recently got out of a marriage. He was divorced, went through hell but survived, got full custody of his kid, and he was back on the dating scene. And the first girl he goes out with, to put it mildly, was nuts. But unfortunately, he didn't have this material back then, didn't know these things. But even then, he got to see the crazy real quick on the first date, but he continued seeing her. And to no surprise, the crazy continued. And eventually, it got so out of hand that, well, you'll see how it goes. However, before he ends it with her, you're going to see that he definitely has some fun with her. A little payback, if you will, for all the BS she was putting him through. Mental gymnastics. And that'll be a very entertaining one to go over here, guys. For those of you guys that, and I know pretty much most of you in some capacity, has had a bad situation with a girlfriend or a date, has been jerked around, mind games, all that. And it's pretty darn funny when the tables are turned and you put them through some mind games. They don't like it too much, and you're going to see here. And I might add, you're going to see that this guy, like I said, there were many red flags this guy chose to ignore. And you'll see in this story, when I read it, you'll be screaming out loud like, "What?" in shock that this guy continues seeing her. But you know what? You got to learn, and I think this guy definitely learned after her. So it's definitely a good one. You guys will enjoy hearing. He says, "Dear SSM, I've enjoyed several of your stories about guys that ultimately end up doing much better in life after they cut out some of the drama that many of the gals plague upon them. So I thought I would share this little short story about a gal that I briefly dated shortly after coming out of my divorce from my first wife. I hope you will find it enjoyable. I know when I went through it, certainly enjoyed how it ended." Bro, your story is pretty funny, and that's exactly why I'm doing it today. I had recently come out of my divorce from my ex-wife with full custody of my son. Awesome, man. Good for you. My ex-wife had more than a few significant mental issues, and although the divorce was the most painful time in my life, her mental state all but ensured that a relatively normal guy like myself would get full custody. Well, here's a question. Were you aware of her mental issues and all the other BS when you married her? Really? Or were you, if you're honest with yourself, the typical white knight that thought you could save her? How'd that turn out? But anyhow, I'm glad you got full custody of your son. That's awesome. And even though he was going through hell, guys, he got through it. So for all you guys maybe going through that or dreading and divorcing a wife it's just a bad situation, but you dread the misery of divorce, yeah, it's going to be hell, but you'll get through it and you're going to be okay. He says, everybody says that their ex is psychotic, but in my case, I have papers to back it up. Anyway, several months after the divorce was finalized, I decided to try my hand at dating again. This was in mid-2000s, before dating apps, not to mention smartphones, and smartphones were that common. So I put myself on the free dating service through Yahoo. Holy crap, Yahoo! I haven't said that word in a while. It was there that I was matched up with a woman that I will call Mary. In many ways, I was quite the catch, being a single man in my mid-30s, a stable career, a home that I owned instead of rented, relatively good-looking, intelligent, and a 401k. Of course, a negative that some women didn't like was the fact that I was also a single dad, which turned off some women. Oh, okay, so it's okay for them to be turned off by a single dad, with a kid or kids. No. But if a guy says, hey, you know what? I'm not interested in dating a single MOM for many, many reasons that we all know, but also simply I just don't want to deal with it, then he's the bad guy. Even back then. Shocker. He says here, I didn't have a problem with this since oftentimes single MOMs faced similar problems. Mary and I started talking online, and after several exchanges using Yahoo Instant Messenger, God, we're going back in time, we eventually decided to meet for coffee to see how we clicked in person. Good for you. Meet for a drink, coffee, tea, not expensive dinner. Good. What was unusual and surprised me was that when we made arrangements, I offered to meet her at a coffee shop, but instead asked me to come pick her up. Usually in these situations, I prefer to meet at that place that we will have a date for the first time for safety reasons, but I shrugged it off as I figured she was the one doing the risk, and I was going to have to take advantage of it. Smack! Or I wasn't going to have to take advantage of it. If you didn't want to pick up the girl, don't pick up the girl, guys. End of story. And if you made it clear you weren't big on that, already you're going to guess what you want to do. And that's what nice guys do. Guys with self-respect or bad boys do what they want to do. You want to meet a girl, at the place for coffee or a beer, you do that. You don't go pick her up because, she's telling you to do it. I picked her up. We went to a nearby coffee shop and sat down talking for a couple hours over a couple cups of tea. We seemed to get along well enough, even though there were more than enough red flags. Well, if there were red flags, that's when you leave. And by the way, I forgot to mention a minute ago, the reason you also don't pick them up, particularly for the first date, even for a coffee, is that if it goes horrible and you don't like her, then by and large, you're on the hook for taking her home. Now, of course, you don't have to. But a lot of guys don't have the balls to walk away and say, and he says this is the mid-2000s, so this is before Uber or Lyft. Yeah, she could take a taxi, but it's a little more challenging. So don't pick them up for the first date. Just meet them. Anyway, he saw red flags. The first red flag was that she was older than me by 5 years. At this point, I was 35, so yes, she was 40. The second was that she was also divorced. This would not be such a concern to me since I was divorced as well. However, while I've been married and divorced once, she had been married and divorced 4 times. 4 times married and divorced by the time she's 40 years old. Dude, I don't even know why the hell you didn't run out of there with a fire trail behind you like when the DeLorean goes back in time. Married and divorced? No way. Now, here's the question we're all thinking. For 40 years old, was she smoking hot? An easy lay? Well, we'll find out. This immediately raised a huge red flag for me, but I figured this was my rebound girlfriend and probably wouldn't go anywhere. He says, yes, I know, I deserve a huge smack for that one. Yeah, smack. Rebound girlfriend? This is one fucking date, dude. Married 4 times. The third red flag was that she admitted that she had her own struggles with depression. Once more, I figured this was my rebound girlfriend, so I could spend some time with her and have a little fun time that didn't involve playing video games with my son. I would rather play video games with your son than be with one of these nut jobs. Now, a lot of people suffer from depression. Okay, runs in my family. I know what it's like because it's impacted me too in life. But the fact that there's all these other things and the depression issues, and it's probable she's on medication and probably just therapy. Put all that shit together, it's not worth it, man. I'm sure you can get another girl for your rebound or whatever the hell it is. In spite of all the red flags, we exchanged phone numbers and I took her back to her home, confident that we would go out again. The next day I called her back and invited her to go out to dinner a couple days later. We ended up going out to dinner and talking more, having a wonderful time together. Yeah, let's see how long this lasts. She loved that I had what she called old world manners and did things like hold the door open for her and stand when she approached or left the table. Smack! Well, she ain't no lady, as we're about to find out. For God's sakes. Standing up at the table, up and down. Come on. The time when I took her home, we kissed. By the time I was home and sent the babysitter home, she called me and we started talking for a long time. I wouldn't have done that. That's when a huge red flag appeared. What? There's more? She told me that she thought she was falling in love with me, and she asked me to marry her. Holy shit. Run, Forrest. Run for the hills with the fire trails behind you like the DeLorean. She's in love with you after the second date and wants to marry you. I mean, she's been married and divorced 4 times. She's not exactly a very good judge in that department. He says, yes, we've been dating less than a week, and I had a marriage proposal. I paused for a moment as my mind raced, and I thought, how do I get out of this without totally offending her? Then I calmly told her, I really like you, and I like where this is going, but I'm not ready to get married. I just got out of my marriage, and I'm paying spousal maintenance to my ex-wife for another 3 years. I want to be done paying for my first wife before I get another. She tried to convince me otherwise, saying, if you know you're in love with someone, why wait? Yeah, I'm going to take the advice from the idiot that's been married and divorced 4 times before she's 40 years old. Clearly she has impulse controls, probably wants someone else to pay her bills, who knows? And I might add, she's bringing up getting married and you haven't even sealed the deal yet. And she also said other cliches such as this, but I was not going to budge. She finally seemed to accept what I said and understood my position. And this is when a guy who had a brain, it wasn't letting his little head tell him what to do, would have been gone, hung up on her, whatever. Nope. It was a couple of days later that we planned a date where she would come over after work to watch movies at my place. I would not let this nut job in my house. This would be the first time that she'd be coming to my home, and she was going to come over after she got off work. She worked from home 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. working on her computer. As we waited for our date, we were talking over the phone. I had put my son to bed and he was sleeping soundly. Finally, the time came to be 9:45 and she said she was going to log off and then hop in the car to drive over. She would be here at 10:15. This is the mid-2000s, so I'm guessing 2005, 2006. And she works 2 to 10 on her computer at home. So this is way ahead of the times. Something tells me she's probably so impossible to work with that she has to work at home. Call me crazy, but she's crazy. So we said goodbye, and I waited to see her in half an hour. I had the movie that we'd chosen and ready to play my DVD player. Some drinks and popcorn ready to go. And I waited. And I waited. And I waited. Around 10:45, I called her cell phone and no one picked up. I called her home and no one picked up. At around 11 p.m., I started getting worried, but I wasn't in a position where I could go to her home and see if anything had happened because I couldn't leave my son alone. And I couldn't exactly call the cops because we'd only been dating a couple of weeks. Yeah, the cops would laugh at you. Finally, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I went to bed. You waited for 4 frickin' hours and you didn't hear from her? The next morning, I got my son off to school before I went to work. And on my lunch break, I went to her home to find out what happened. Her car was in the front of the house, so I knew she hadn't gotten into an accident or anything. I knocked on the door and no one answered. Finally, I went back to work, still not knowing what had happened. When I got home that evening, I turned on my computer to find an instant message waiting for me, which said, "John, we are no longer together. Stop coming by my home." I shrugged and went on with my life. I was more than a little pissed at the fact that she stood me up in such a callous way, but what could I do? So she proposes to him on their second date. He obviously turns her down. And they see each other again, and they prepare this date for her to come over, and that's it. No contact, nothing. And then she reaches out and says, "Stop coming by my home," and all this other shit, like you're the bad guy here. So, as if it was obvious. If it wasn't obvious before, don't get involved with this woman. At this point, be done with her. But no, not this guy. Anyway, about a week later, I ended up going on a date with another woman. It was a short date, which once more consisted of meeting at a coffee shop, but in this case, we did not feel a connection. That night, as I got online, I saw a message waiting from Mary. She said, "Hi, how are you doing?" Now, if I had been a smart man, I would have just ignored a woman that showed such a rampant disrespect for me. But I decided to engage with her. Smack! Dude, I'm not feeling bad for you because you brought this shit on yourself. I'm sure there was part of you that was curious. And let's be honest, if she was good looking for her age at 40, and, the crazy gals can just rope guys in. It's amazing. Anyway, she said she was sorry and was wondering if she could come over after work was over to talk. Like a fool, I said yes. Smack! She came over, and we talked about what happened, and I told her that I was up to 2 o'clock in the morning because I was worried for her safety. She spouted some BS about how things were moving too quickly, so she got cold feet, and so she ghosted me. Moving too quickly? Isn't this the chick that proposed to you and said we should get married on the second date? Moving too quickly? Hello? Does this girl have, I don't know, amnesia or something? She can't remember certain things or whatever? Or is she deliberately messing with your head, pulling BS, shit tests, just a general pain in the ass? She got cold feet, so she ghosted me. He said this was before the term ghosting was a thing. I told her that was incredibly disrespectful, especially considering she did it to someone she asked to marry her earlier. We talked for a long time and eventually ended up having a lot of fun in the bedroom that night. Well, at least she got laid, but still. Like a praying mantis, you could have hooked up and she would eat me alive. After we were done lying in bed, she asked me if I had been dating anyone else since the last time we had talked. I told her I had a date with a woman, but nothing happened. she freaked out, accusing me of cheating on her while we were on a break. As she was freaking out, I'm thinking, what is this, Ross and Rachel from Friends? I told her that she had broken up with me, and considering that we weren't even exclusive at the time, I didn't know how she could expect that I would be held in such a standard. Exactly. You went on a couple dates, you didn't even hook up yet, you know? And she's the one that ditched you, and then she told you to basically it's over, and don't come by her house. You have a reason to hook up with somebody else and date, and you didn't even hook up, you had a fucking coffee or tea, and that was the end of it. She's nuts, dude. But guys are dumb enough to be attracted to the crazy. She just responded that she couldn't help feeling how she felt. Yeah, I know, I deserve smack for not kicking around my bed right then and there, or at least as soon as we woke up the next morning. Smack! What the hell? Hot crazy, well, I'm not going to say hot. I'm going to say she's probably good looking for her age / crazy scale. And I'm sure the SEX was wild and crazy because she's nuts. There was other instances of crazy that I could go into with Mary, but I think you get the idea. Oh, no. You can't leave us hanging here. We want to hear the crazy. Why do you think we're here? We love to hear the crazy. What I can say is you always tell people crazy SCX is amazing. After a crazy month of dating her, it all came to a head. Yeah, after you got your head. I was talking with her while she was working, and I told her that it's a shame I don't have a time to arrange a babysitter for my son. I'd love to take her for a walk in the park after work because it was a full moon. Oh, hell no, I'm not going anywhere with her during a full moon. Bitch will turn into a werewolf and eat you alive. She immediately started saying how much she wanted that. How much she would love to have a man do that for her. She was practically begging me to figure out a way to make it happen. After some consideration, I told her, okay, I need to make some phone calls to see if I can make it happen. But this is last minute, so I don't know if I can. She was so excited. I ended up calling some friends, and eventually I was able to convince some of them to take my son for the evening so I can go on my date. Now let's all recall the last time he was making arrangements to meet her late at night, 10 o'clock at night or something like that. She blew him off, and not in a good way. Now watch this. Now the crazy part, the mental gymnastics that followed. I called Mary back and told her the good news. I had made arrangements for someone to watch my son and would be by her house at 10 p.m. to take her on that moonlight walk. She promptly told me that she changed her mind and didn't feel up to it. Y'all know Charlie Brown, the cartoon. You know when Lucy, there's that scene where Lucy holds the football and convinces Charlie Brown to run, kick the ball, and as soon as he comes to kick the ball, the bitch pulls it away and he falls on his ass. And she's always convinced him to do it, and he's so dumb to do it. This is one of these situations. She convinced you to do it again, and like Charlie Brown, you're like, fine, ran to kick the ball, and you fell on your ass. How much BS and shit tests you got to go through to realize end it with this broad permanently? I just paused for a moment as a way to what she said hit me before I responded. Okay, so let me make sure I understand, I said. You begged me to figure out a way to make this happen. You told me how much you absolutely wanted this. I told you that it would be difficult to make arrangements for childcare for my son. I had to call in favors for some of my friends to make this happen, and now you changed your mind? She said, yes, you understand, don't you? Dude, she's messing with you. She's nuts, but she's also messing with you. How much can I jerk this guy around? He'll keep coming back for more. You know, I heard somebody once say that women don't play video games, or most women don't play video games, because they have men to play games with. I responded, oh, I understand. I just want to make sure that we both understand exactly why I'm breaking up with you. Goodbye. I then hung up. About fucking time, man. She immediately started blowing up my cell phone with phone calls, trying to get through to me, but I didn't answer any of them. I just let them all go to voicemail. At this point, my son was already at my friend's house spending the night, so I figured I might as well go out to dinner and have a late supper by myself. After all, I didn't get a chance to do it very often since I was a single dad. I took a book with me and went to a local pub that served some good sandwiches and ordered dinner as I settled in with my book. Every few minutes, my cell phone would ring, and it was always Mary, and I wouldn't answer. You brought this on yourself, man, but now at least you've come to your senses, and you're going to have a little fun with her. As I talked with the waitress, I told her about all what had happened earlier in the evening with Mary. As if on cue, my cell phone started ringing once again. I looked at it, then smiled at the waitress and said, "You want to make an extra 20 bucks in your tip by pretending to be a girl I'm picking up at the bar?" Oh boy, this is going to be good. She laughed and nodded as she took my phone. I will try to remember how the conversation went, but I could only hear the waitress half of it. It went something like this. The waitress picks up the phone and says, "Hello. No, he just went to the bathroom. He left his phone on the table. Oh, I'm Becky. I just met him at the bar. Oh, you must be the girl he broke up with a couple hours ago. Well, according to him, he broke up with you. Well, I'm here now, and you aren't. Oh, I think he's cute and funny. I bet he's good in bed. Well, of course you would say that. You know you don't have him anymore. I do." She then hung up the phone and handed it back to me as she asked, "How was that?" Sounds like she has some experience in this. At this point, I was struggling to keep from laughing while she was on the phone, and I couldn't hold it anymore. I told her she did it perfectly. Almost immediately, I could see Mary trying to call my phone back. I kept letting it go to voicemail, partially because I couldn't stop laughing. She was having full-on meltdown, man. When I finally did pick up the phone, of course you had to pick up you had to pick it up, didn't you? But then again, this story wouldn't be as good if you didn't pick up the phone. When I finally picked up the phone, I heard Mary screaming at me how I was cheating on her. I couldn't get a word in, as she continued to howl like a banshee as I was a cheater. That's because she turned into a goddamn werewolf. I told you she's going to turn into a werewolf at the full moon. Just a werewolf that could yell and speak English. Meanwhile, I'm on the phone laughing at her, which pissed her off even more, I bet. Finally, she yelled on the phone, "That's it! I never want to see you again." All while I was laughing at her. To this day, she has no idea I never actually hooked up with the waitress. And yes, I paid the waitress a very generous tip. Best money I ever spent for dinner. Bro, that's awesome. She deserves this. She's messing with you. You deserve to mess with her right back. In the end, there are no real lessons to the story. There are always lessons in the story. You just don't know them. But I thought it would be entertaining. Keep up the good work. I always listen to your channel while I'm working out in the morning before I go to work, and your affirmation to be a better man spurred me to do just that as I'm working out. Well, good for you. Keep hitting the gym, hitting the weights. Bro, that's hilarious. That's a great story. Lessons? Oh, please. There are lessons. Number one, the red flags. You pay attention to them, and when you see them, as there were many displayed right then and there, you get out of there because you don't need that shit. That was made perfectly clear in this guy's story. Number two, amongst the red flags, if a woman's been divorced 4 times, any time period, get away from her. If she proposes to you on the second date, get away from her. What else? If she's jerking you around and playing games and all that type of stuff, not showing up, ghosting, all that, get rid of her. Now, I could go on, but I think you all get the point here. But anyhow, bro, you learned. And of course, the crazy sex, we all know that. But how many of us are stupid enough to continue seeing some crazy broad because she's nuts in the sack and does wild things? Well, guess what? I've known not crazy ones do crazy things in the sack too. So, But anyhow, bro, good story here. I appreciate you sharing it. I hope you're doing well. I hope your son's doing well. And again, I'm glad that the divorce went in your favor. So there you go, guys. Watch out for the crazy. But you know what? Have a little fun with the crazy every now and again if they piss you off. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let to think about this. Give this guy a shout in the comment section for handling that well, even though we wanted to smack him for involving himself with this nut. And also, guys, you got a good story you want to share with me, definitely email to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just give me some time to get to it, and I will if I definitely get the chance. And this is stories for this channel, crazy stories you found online for the They Did What channel, and shorter crazy stories for the SSM Clips. And of course, if you haven't done so already, definitely subscribe to all 3 channels. YouTube is on the warpath lately, if you know what I mean. So the more people subscribe to me by you spreading the word, definitely helps me out continuing what I'm doing here. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.